The rain had been falling since dawn, not the dramatic kind that announced itself with thunder, but a thin, relentless drizzle that soaked clothes, cardboard signs, and hope alike. On the corner of Maple and 8th, where the city hurried past without looking down, a young woman sat beneath the narrow awning of a closed jewelry shop, her back straight despite exhaustion, her hands trembling as she clutched a small velvet pouch. Her name was Eliza Monroe, and at 26, life had already taken from her more than it ever gave back. Her hair was tied loosely, strands escaping to stick to her damp cheeks, and her coat, once a gift from her mother, was too thin for the cold. In her lap rested the pouch, the last thing of value she owned in this world, the only treasure she had sworn she would never part with. Inside it was a simple gold locket, oval and worn smooth by time, its hinge slightly bent. To anyone else it was old, unfashionable, easily overlooked. To Eliza it was everything. It had belonged to her mother, and before that to her grandmother, a quiet lineage of love passed from one struggling woman to another. Inside the locket was a faded photograph of her parents on their wedding day, smiling with a kind of hope Eliza had never known in her own adult life. She had promised herself she would keep it forever, but promises are fragile when hunger gnaws at your stomach and eviction notices pile up unanswered. Eliza hadn't eaten in 2 days. She had told herself she wasn't hungry, that she could last one more night, but the dizziness gave her away. Her younger brother Noah waited at home in their tiny, unheated apartment, pretending not to be hungry himself, pretending to be brave. At 14, he had learned far too early how to lie kindly. That morning he had smiled and said, "I'm fine, Ellie. I ate at school yesterday." Eliza knew better. She always knew better. That was why she was here, sitting in the rain, rehearsing the words in her head, working up the courage to do what felt like a betrayal. Across the street, the golden pawnshop glowed warmly, its windows bright and inviting in a way that felt almost cruel. People went in and out casually, their lives intact, their bellies full. For them, selling jewelry was a choice. For Eliza, it was surrender. She opened the velvet pouch once more, her fingers brushing the locket as if memorizing its weight, its warmth. Her throat tightened, and she whispered an apology, not to herself but to her mother, to the memory she was about to trade for survival. When she finally stood, her legs felt weak, but she crossed the street anyway, each step heavy with meaning. The bell above the pawnshop door rang as she entered, sharp and final. Inside, the smell of metal and polish filled the air. Behind the counter stood an older man with tired eyes who had seen hundreds of stories pass through his hands. He glanced up, assessed her quickly, not unkindly but without illusion. Eliza placed the locket on the counter with careful reverence, as though setting down something alive. The man picked it up, inspected it, weighed it in his palm. "It's old," he said flatly, opening it and glancing at the photo inside. "Gold's real but thin. I can give you 80. The number hit her like a slap. $80 for a lifetime of memories. She swallowed hard, nodding slowly. $80 meant groceries. It meant bread, eggs, soup. It meant Noah wouldn't go to bed hungry tonight. That had to be enough. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She simply nodded again, eyes fixed on the counter as if looking away would make it easier. The man counted out the bills and slid them toward her. As Eliza took the money, she hesitated, her fingers lingering near the locket one last time. Then she turned away quickly. Before she could change her mind, before the tears could fall, outside the rain felt heavier. Eliza tucked the money into her coat and walked past the pawnshop without looking back. A block away, she stopped at a small grocery store, the kind that stayed open late and sold day-old bread at a discount. She bought what she could: rice, canned soup, a loaf of bread, a little milk. As she paid, her hands shook again, not from cold this time, but from the hollow ache in her chest. She had done what she had to do. That was what adults did, she told herself. They sacrificed quietly. On her way out, she passed a man stepping aside to let her through the door. He was tall, well-dressed, his coat tailored, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne and rain. Their eyes met for just a second, and something about his gaze made Eliza lower hers instinctively. It wasn't judgment. It was curiosity, sharp, focused, unexpected. She hurried past him, unaware that she had just crossed paths with Victor Hale, one of the most powerful billionaires in the city, a man who owned buildings she could never afford to look at, a man who rarely noticed anyone outside his carefully ordered world. Victor hadn't planned to stop at the pawn shop that afternoon. His driver was stuck in traffic, and he had decided to walk the last few blocks to his meeting, enjoying the anonymity the rain provided. He had built an empire on numbers, on strategy, on reading people better than they read themselves. As he approached the shop, he noticed Eliza through the window, noticed the way she held herself, the way her shoulders carried more weight than her slight frame should allow. He saw her place something on the counter, with care that didn't match the transaction. When she left moments later, her eyes were red, her expression controlled but fragile. Victor had seen desperation before, but this was different. This was dignity under siege. When he entered the shop, the pawnbroker greeted him with forced enthusiasm, instantly recognizing a man with money. Victor nodded absently, his attention already elsewhere. His gaze went to the counter, to the familiar shape, resting there. "May I?" Victor asked, pointing to the locket. The pawnbroker shrugged and slid it over. Victor opened it, expecting nothing. Instead, he felt something tighten unexpectedly in his chest. The photograph inside, two young people standing close, smiling with unguarded hope, felt strangely powerful. It wasn't valuable in the way Victor understood value, but it carried something rare, sincerity. "Who sold this?" Victor asked quietly. "Young woman," the pawnbroker replied. Didn't haggle. Looked like she needed the money. Victor closed the locket slowly, his mind racing. He had built his life on acquiring things. Yet here was someone who had given up her only treasure without complaint. As he handed the locket back, Victor felt an unfamiliar sensation. Regret, perhaps, or curiosity mixed with respect. He stepped back outside, scanning the street. But Eliza was already gone, swallowed by the city. Across town, Eliza climbed the stairs to her apartment, groceries cutting into her fingers. When she opened the door, Noah looked up from the mattress on the floor, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the bags. "You did it," he said softly. Eliza smiled, forcing brightness into her voice. "Of course I did." She busied herself in the small kitchen, putting water on to boil, refusing to think about the empty space around her neck where the locket used to rest. As they ate together later, simple soup and bread never tasting so good, Eliza watched her brother eat with careful gratitude, and she told herself it was worth it. It had to be. Still, that night when Noah fell asleep, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, fingers unconsciously touching her collarbone, tears slipping silently into her hair. She didn't know that across the city, a billionaire sat in a sleek office, unable to stop thinking about a young woman in the rain and a locket that had carried more meaning than all the wealth he owned. And if this story of sacrifice and unseen strength is already pulling at your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning. What happens next will change both of their lives in ways neither of them could ever imagine.